I'd like to call the committee of the whole for the Village of Cary for Tuesday, March 20th, 2018 to order with roll call, please.
Kostler?
Here.
Kraus?
Here.
Cavelli? Here. Betts?
Here.
McAlpine?
Here.
Thank you. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We now have a public comment section where the audience is invited to address the committee of the whole. Anything not been made aware of anything, so, oh, sure. Come on up, speak. Just your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Patsy Fritz, and I own All Exclusive Realty and Dolce Day Spa in Cary, and I would like just to ask some questions about my sign. In 2008, Mark Green purchased the sign and the lease for the Route 14 sign, and in 2013, I purchased it from him. The lease, the 10-year lease ended 1/31/18, and I received a letter, notice of non-renewal, and that I needed to negotiate with Pilates for the top part of the sign. And I tried several times. I had my attorney go meet with him, and he will not lease. He only wants to buy. My question is, can I sell him part of the sign, or can I, because I have 6 companies represented on that sign, and my name has changed. I don't have the lease, so I can't change the sign, and he won't negotiate.
Well, let me, I know that staff has been working with you on this.
Yes.
At the committee meeting, we really don't get into dialogue about this. It's not on the agenda, and we can't take any action at the committee meeting.
Oh, I understand that.
So my advice to you is if you could get with Jake and Brian, and perhaps we could put something together for you. I know there's many people on this board that would like to see this get taken care of and move forward in a positive direction. So we could reach out to Pilates, and we can put together something so where you guys could sit down and have come up with a suitable agreement for all.
Okay.
Believe me, we're not forcing anybody to do anything. We're not prioritize anybody over anything. We're just trying to get the 2 businesses to come together and come up with an agreement that's best for everybody.
But it doesn't feel that way to me.
Okay.
I mean, Jake immediately said, could there be a possibility he could buy part of the sign? And Jake immediately said, oh, I'm sure that could work. But is that saying that that is my only option? I have to sell him part of the sign? That's,
Well,
I mean, I bought that sign, and I'm very willing to lease him any portion he wants, but he will not lease at all. He wants to own.
There's many options that we can work through, and selling a portion of it is one option. And we're happy to sit down again, Brian and I here, and talk with you about those options.
But that's my only option, that you're telling me that if I can't sell part and he won't go on as a lease, my only option is to sell. Is that what you're, I just want to understand that.
I don't think that you're
There's other options that we've discussed, and I think it's probably worth having another conversation with us here. I know that there's some
I've asked you
disagreement.
3 times if there's any other option, and you never have answered that. And that's all I'm wondering.
We
If I have
provided
to
the
sell
options.
part of it, I need to know, because I have to make that decision. Or I could take it down, and that doesn't help anyone.
Yeah, we provided the options here and talked with you at length about it.
That we could
Patsy.
lease it, yes, or I could sell. But he won't lease, and I need to know, then my only option is selling part of it, is what I'm hearing. And that, I just want to clearly understand that.
At this point, I don't know if there are a lot more options here to work through.
So even though I bought that sign, he can dictate that I have to sell him the sign.
I'm not saying that Pilates is dictating this at all.
They said that to my attorney, they said that to you, that they would not lease, they only will buy.
Well, then we're going to have to circle back here, as a group as a village board and decide what we want to do. I expect that this may be on a future meeting agenda here
But
for the
my real
village board to discuss. And we'll have an opportunity both to hear from you and hear from Galati's about it and just have an open discussion.
Okay, because my real problem is I have a new company name. I don't own the lease, and you refuse to give me even a small extension. So I don't know if I should spend the money to put up a new sign. I mean, I've changed from realty executives to all exclusive. Daniel Hands, an attorney, is coming off, and another insurance agency wants to go on, and I can't do that because I don't own it. I mean,
Well,
I don't own the right.
I believe that we've been pretty flexible with this whole situation. The lease agreement expired in January, and here we are towards the end of March. We're trying to put the parties together to come up with an agreeable solution for everybody. Let us, Jake, take another look at this, get the parties together with Brian, and we'll come up with the solution that both of you, hopefully come up with the solution that both parties could live with.
That is a vision, and that's been the vision here all along, Patsy, from the village board. Yes, from the village board's perspective.
No,
is
I
that
never had a clear answer.
If you can let me finish here. The village board has always wanted here for you and Galati's to work out an agreement so that that sign can remain. The last thing the village wants to do is to see that sign go away. We don't want to see that sign go away, and that's why we want you all to work something out here for the best interest of not only those two businesses, but for all the businesses in the Feinberg Court area. So we're still striving for that, and we hope that you all can work something out, okay?
But if he refuses to buy partial, then, is my option to take the sign down? Because I don't own it.
Well,
I don't own the lease.
that's what we would circle back and, have a conversation with the village board and decide what we
And
want
I've
to do.
asked you that 3
So,
different times, and you never would answer me. So, I'll have another meeting, and I'll hire my attorney to come, but I never get an answer to that question. What are my options?
Well, I believe the last time that there was a meeting with your attorney went back with some sort of a solution. I don't remember exactly what it was, but just so everybody here knows, understanding why we're even getting involved in the sign issue is because the sign was constructed on village property. And technically, we really shouldn't have done, it was done in previous administrations. It was done to try to promote a commercial center, professional center that's off of Route 14 to give identity to the center down there. So there was an agreement made up that it expired, with all things considered, just so everybody has an understanding what that's all about.
We
are trying to
talked
put things
through-
together.
We have talked through options. I know Brian and I have talked to you and talked to your attorney about the options for the sign. We had that first meeting, and your attorney said, I'm well aware, we know what we need to do, and we're going to do it. And that's where we left it. So we've talked through these options with you. So
My
I'd be
attorney
happy-
came back and said, he will not lease, you have to sell. That's what my attorney said.
And I would be
And I would not
happy-
agree with that.
I'd be happy to review these options with you again. Okay?
Well, I have office hours on Thursdays from 2 to 5. Why don't you call me at Village Hall here, and we'll set up a time, and we can sit down and get some specifics done and try to expedite this for you.
Okay. And I'm gone next week, so I'll call the following week.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
Thank
There's
you.
no bulldozer in place, so don't worry about that.
Yeah.
We'll work with you here, try to get it done.
Yeah, because I'd truly like to get my sign back up and advertise 6 people on that sign.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to address the committee of the whole? Thank you. Moving to the topic of the evening is water conservation. Eric?
All right, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to discuss this evening with the committee some potential options for implementing an amendment to our current outdoor water sprinkling ordinance. What we would like to do is take this opportunity to add an element of conservation and also add some flexibility and practicality to our process in order to help address issues that might occur in the future with regards to drought, or if we had mechanical operational issues at wells with production, any number of reasons where we would need the assistance of the residents in order to maintain proper service to the whole village and also service other needs like fire protection. So why conserve? Before you on the dais, we put a couple copies of different brochures that McHenry County's Division of Water Resources puts out. It does a very good job of summarizing kind of the specific needs and importance of groundwater resources for McHenry County and Cary as well. As you probably are aware, all of our groundwater and drinking water is sourced from the ground through wells, municipal wells. So groundwater is our only source of drinking water. We do not source from Lake Michigan. We do not source from surface ponds or rivers. As increased demands occur during droughts or operational issues, like I mentioned, there could be times when a municipality and a water utility like ourselves would need to impose certain limits on the use of water to maintain service to everybody and protect the village. Currently, our existing ordinance does have provisions to allow the village to require all outdoor water use to cease. However, it's a black and white on-off kind of ordinance. What we're going to look at here tonight are some options that kind of mirror some of the finer features from a lot of our surrounding communities, all of which have some sort of tiered water conservation and water use provisions. So what are some of the elements that are out there from our research, from best practices, and as well as from surrounding communities? First and foremost, making a simple, easy to understand process and status alert that both residents and non-residential customers can understand. So the typical red, yellow, green as far as the levels of severity and the level of status for our water use is what we'd be proposing. Now, how would we accomplish that? Some of the main options that are out there are to have the tiered restrictions occur either by dates range, which oftentimes is a time of the year, usually in the summer months when droughts are more and higher water usage is more typical. By time of day, obviously the type of water use, especially with lawn sprinkling and irrigation, the best times of day to do that is during the evenings, nighttime, and as well as the early morning. That way, if water is applied, say during the middle of the day at the peak temperatures, oftentimes that water doesn't get a chance to infiltrate in the ground and soak in for the plants, and it just evaporates right away. So that's from a practical standpoint as well as a cost standpoint for residents that do irrigate their lawns. Putting that extra time and water and money in a time when the plants don't benefit is not great for the water supply or the customer. And then also by type of water usage, by and large, the most high volume use during the summertime is for lawn irrigation and sprinkling. Other outdoor water uses are something we would also tend to look at, but maybe in a different manner. That would include washing your cars, pressure washing decks and sidewalks, and things like that. And most of the other communities, or some of them, do address that in a different manner as well. And the third provision would be for enforcement. The most typical ways that are used to accomplish this are either penalties and fines, which is a standard provision of most municipal codes as well as Cary's. Water billing surcharge, one community, which is the village of Algonquin, they have that ability to, they have restrictions in place similar to what we're proposing, but they also have a surcharge for high usage during these conservation periods. So if a resident still wishes to use a higher than normal amount of water during a time when the status is dictated for either preservation or conservation, they have a surcharge that approximately triples their water bill for amounts used over 20,000 gallons. We're not suggesting that's recommended for what we want to accomplish here in Village of Cary. Just from a logistical standpoint in the water billing system, that might be a little bit more challenging to add in. But that is just another manner that one other community has used. And a third provision, oftentimes is overlapped with the penalties or fines, is the ability to shut off water for continued noncompliance. Two of our neighboring communities use that approach as a last resort after the penalties and fines. Just some examples of the level of detail and the provisions that are in some of the towns around us. The Village of Barrington has a 4-tiered system, and they separate out the different types of water uses in great detail. The first column is the lawn irrigation. They have their standard mode is a conservation mode where you can water and sprinkle your lawn anytime, but just in the mornings and just in the evenings. Then if they have a need for either drought conditions or other operational needs, they can ratchet that up to a yellow, where they would then go to an even odd day perspective, which is also common among communities, which means that if your residential address is a number that ends in an even number, like 22 or 46, you can only water your lawns outdoors for the days of the month that also end in an even number. And obviously the same for the odd numbers. And then they have the third and fourth tier. The orange level prohibits fully lawn sprinkling, but still allows on the even odd schedule the minor watering for gardening and shrubs and trees by hand. And then obviously the red is full out prohibition of all outdoor water use. On the other end of the spectrum, Fox River Grove, they don't have any dates to delineate that, but they only have 4 separate tiers, and pretty simplified as far as unrestricted, go to an even odd anytime, even odd just at night, and then full prohibition. Just 2 more examples, Crystal Lake and Algonquin. These 2 are very similar. They separate out other outdoor water uses besides lawn sprinkling, and they have tiers for that. I won't go into great detail, but they use similar parameters, the even odd days by times, and for the different code statuses, increasing the amount of restriction as you go up. As you can see, they have varying limits as far as when this applies. Crystal Lakes is June through August, whereas Algonquin's is May through the middle of September. From the enforcement side, like I mentioned, fees and fines are typically the most common. The current village code actually already implements that provision, applying that standard $75 fine per day that the violation occurs. As I mentioned before, water service shut off as a last resort is possible, but that was something that other communities, and if we were to consider it as well, that's only a last resort after several friendly reminders and continued noncompliance. And then lastly, the surcharge concept that I had mentioned. So as far as what we're suggesting that the village board consider for the future would be a streamlined version of, I think, a lot of the different elements you saw in those 4 examples earlier. I would propose to keep it simple as a 3-tiered system. The default of green would be what we would be in all the time, and then in effect from June 15th through September 15th, which is typically the times of the year that you're most likely to incur drought conditions. So we would suggest just a conservation mode. I wouldn't want to inconvenience residents more than we have to, so I would not propose the even odd system. I'd let them water any day they like, but we would obviously strongly encourage that they do it the times that they're not wasting the money through evaporation in the summer, and only do it in the evenings, overnight, and in the mornings. So from 6 p.m. then all the way through till 10 a.m. as a standard approach. If we have weather issues or operational issues, we would then have the option, instead of just a pure restriction on water use outside, go to a yellow mode or a preservation mode. And that would then, just to reduce the high volume usage of outdoor water with just the sprinkling, we would then limit that to just the evening hours from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Again, not being able to predict when rain occurs and doesn't occur, and minimize convenience or confusion to residents, I would suggest avoiding the even odd concept and just limiting the amount of hours and usage. And then if we had a extreme emergency needed to prohibit all water usage, that would be similar to other towns. That would include not just the sprinkling, like the first 2 tiers, but also all other outdoor water use. And that would be, again, only in extreme emergency cases. And that matches the exact current code that we have in place right now. So the main differences, what we have from current to now, are really the addition of a time frame that this applies, June 15th to September 15th. And the 2 additional tiers below full prohibition. From the enforcement side, we're not suggesting any changes at this time, and continue on with the current process of, we see noncompliance, we approach the residents and try for that friendly reminder and encourage compliance, or we then go through the adjudicated process and obviously issue citations and go through that court process. We'll provide this to you after the meeting, but this is then the draft code amendment that would mirror the table that you just saw. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them.
I have just a quick question, a couple. First of all, I think that it's a good idea that we look at conservation of outdoor water use. So I think that I just remember many, many years ago, we used to have an even odd thing, but it was a long, long time ago. I've been here for over 30 years, so, but it's been a long time since that's happened. With regards to, let's just say Westlake, and we've got some new construction going on, and we have sod that's put in. Is there anything that someone could get a special permit? For example, if someone put sod in, and we were on I guess we're not doing even odds, so it doesn't matter. I was just thinking that I want to make sure that someone has something like that they have the ability to make sure that that gets watered, because that's a little different than someone maintaining a lawn versus a brand-new one getting put in.
And again, when
Yeah, if we're doing it every day, we're fine.
sod construction, I believe, is a separate part of our code anyway. But the timeframes in which any contractor would want to minimize their costs for the watering they have to do, they would likely do it in these same timeframes that we're suggesting in the green status, overnights and early
That's good.
mornings.
I like it being simple.
I think not having the even odd helps the construction schedule as well.
I'm just interested in how this came up, this subject. I didn't hear a village board member bring this to.
It's staff generated here. Just wanted to get your feedback on it. So we're one of the few communities, I don't know if we found any
We're the
communities.
only.
We're the only community here that really doesn't have restrictions. And we're not saying that you need to do this or we have to do it, but just thought it would be appropriate to bring it to you for discussion.
And one of the reasons we considered it, one, because we're the only town that doesn't have a tiered approach. We only have a black and white, you can water or you cannot water at all. But we've also, we've had, obviously, as you're aware, a couple different issues at various wells. When something happens and we have to pull a wellhead, we lose production at various locations occasionally, and that's normal in any water system. We've been fortunate that we have enough capacity with our other wells and the times of years and the lack of an overall drought where we haven't been affected operationally at all by these. But having something like this in place could help prevent supply issues down the road, even before they happen to be in a full-out emergency, being able to get, in a very bad drought situation, get the community in that yellow mode and not watering overnight and all day for a longer period of time before, say, an operational issue happens on top of a drought. It could actually make things much easier for the community and for the utility itself. So it's more of a proactive measure and also a convenience factor so that when we do need to initiate these types of things, the community knows what to expect. And you've probably seen other towns signs outside that say water conservation or water use status, and they have the different colors. It's a very public way that people are aware that that could change. Hopefully it doesn't, but that way it's from that perspective, having the community know what to expect with this and being able to broadcast it and implement it. Like I said, it's good for maintaining the continuity of drinking water for everybody, no matter what the situation.
I just have a question with the water pressure with the odd and the even days. If like the whole street was watering on a daily basis, would the pressure be different?
Odds are no, because the demand from just that one section of town shouldn't be affected by that. Obviously, we don't have any odd even requirements now, so the past 4 years I've been here, at least, there's been no requirement for people to stagger, and we've had normal load and usage. Our pressure systems are in the well system itself are actually divided in 2 different zones, so that a whole system-wide reduction or failure for the whole town isn't possible because of the valves and the boosters that we have in place. But yeah, doing this and allowing this to happen all the time on the same note without even odds should not affect pressure.
Eric, I'm not saying I'm against any of this. I'm not. We can look at this, and I'd like to look at it further. But has there been any issues with the water level in our wells in any time since you've been here where this is a major concern?
Not since I've been here, but like I said, one example is when we had the issues occur at well 4. We had to have it pulled because of just the failure of the pipe down at the base of actually failure of the motor, which happens over time. So we had to pull that out. That's a deep well, so it took quite some time before that well could be put back online. And then afterwards, there was a separate issue that occurred regarding, I forget the details, but also required that well to be offline for additional months after that. We did not have any issues, thankfully, because of the rest of the capacity and the demand and the time of year that it occurred. I think it was in the fall and through the winter. But had that exact same scenario happen on well 4, had that happened during 2012, I believe when there was a big drought, that could have resulted in an issue where we could have had system issues and concerns.
We're
So my
pretty,
goal is just to help be proactive and be ready to
proactive.
hopefully address and keep the system running well for the residents when that worst case scenario happens.
we're pretty fortunate, our utilities are in pretty good shape here, from a water and sewer standpoint. Like Eric said previously, we're just trying to be a little bit proactive with this, but wanted to get it before you, see if you had any initial comments or wanting to soften anything or make any modifications. So there's no urgency with this here, but thought the timing was good before we get into the summer months.
Yeah, we're not seeking to put this before you at a vote at the next meeting. I want to give you some time to review it and, like I said, consider the different options that other towns have. And honestly, if that's the desire of the board, the standard mode of green does not have to be a conservation mode. It could be exactly what we have now with no restriction at all, and we could tier it that way. That, like I said, that's always an option. My opinion is people probably shouldn't be watering their lawn anyway during the times outside that window, just from I'm a little cheap, I guess. I don't like to flush money down the toilet, but if that's desired to, from the perception of having no restrictions be the normal, that's totally acceptable as well.
Any other feedback? I think some of these pointers or conservation tips would be worthwhile putting on the Cary News Weekly every once in a while, just as a conservation blog-ish kind of a thing. No other comments for Eric? Thank you. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.